to the March 10th Selectmen's meeting. I'll call the meeting to order. Can I get a roll call, please?
Bob Klein present.
Wade Miller, also present. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to announce the meeting is being recorded. Chairman's additions, deletions. I just have one brief one that we got information before we start the meeting. Former Selectman Bob Rickholtz passed away yesterday. I don't think we have any details yet, but I'd like to thank him for all the service and take a moment of silence in his honor, if you don't mind. Anything else, Jim? One for public comment period. What do you have any? Sure.
Do you have any mic or?
You just have to try to come close.
That one should be on. Security slide.
I've been asked by the Massachusetts Emergency Management Agency to notify them of any cancellations of meetings over 50 that are held in town by any organization, any type, church, government, school, anything over 50, to please notify them, to notify me through them, for them. And also, and this is a little bit dicier, they also want to know of any meetings coming up in March, April, and May that are going to involve over 50 people. I don't think they know what they asked for, because I've got a list about this long without asking anybody. And that's in Townsend. What they're going to do if they hear from Cambridge and Boston, and I think they're going to have to rethink that. But for now, they want to know of any meetings that are being held that involve over 50 people, and any meetings that are being canceled that are over 50 people. So if everyone would take that to heart, notify me, and I will notify them.
Good.
Thank you.
Town meeting.
Yeah. I haven't heard anything yet as to whether they're going to require any cancellations. Right now, all they want to know is anything that is being canceled by us.
Mr. Chairman, before Shirley sits down as emergency management, the governor did declare a state of emergency this afternoon. So the executive branch in the state government, he's taking effort. He's canceled all travel internationally and domestically. We will obviously hear that. Not that we travel internationally or even domestically that much, but we will follow that. He's also called for cancellation of any group meetings, that if people are attending any trainings or meetings with the people as well, so we're going to work toward that as well. I know that from a facilities perspective, Mr. Beauchamp is working with Board of Health to have a plan to implement prior to there being any issue in buildings in terms of doing disinfection and cleaning. So I know that I'm trying to come across the Clorox wipes is, yesterday they had some at Hannaford's and they had two little things with 5 open shelves. But he's going to work on doing something for the building. And we're all just being mindful to, be our usual hug and kiss yourselves, no handshakes, wash your hands more than you normally would. But we do have, in particular, in the treasurer's office, we have people coming in already basically pay their taxes. And those people that come and pay are in a population that might be considered an at-risk population given age and in some cases health. She is very concerned about what that could bring. So when we convene the meeting the next day, departments to kind of get around the issues that we have locally. They may be the same in every town hall, maybe a little bit for us. We want to just find out what the best steps are moving forward to be not anxious, but prepared.
This may also affect some of the things that you have on the agenda tonight. Some of the things where you're approving parties and stuff. They may involve over 50 people, and I don't know how you want to address that, but it's something we have to think about. Okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Yes, Veronica?
I have just two questions. The first one has to do with the warrant. Is the warrant closed? The warrant for town meeting, is it closed?
Mr. Chairman, through you, Mr. Chairman, to Veronica, yes. There's a bylaw in the town that's existed for probably the better part of 30 years. It says all warrant articles that we received on before March 1st.
Okay, all right, so that, I just asked that question because of the MVP grant, which could be affected by what you just said, because there are community meetings in March and April for that.
To be complete in that answer, however, the special town meeting warrant does not have the same requirement for a deadline by March 1st. So we traditionally hold a special the same evening as the annual. So if there are articles that are appropriate to be taken up on a special,
Can things like, it would be there, the grant cycle in the state for anything that's on that plan opens in April, but it would need approval by town meeting in order to go forward because it's a split kind of thing. Can articles like that
that would fit on special.
would fit on special?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's good to know. All right.
And additionally, I think we talked about yesterday with properties that the town has taken control of.
Mhm.
If there's any interest, and this would be something I'd speak with the board about, if there's an interest in having warrant articles to propose that they be taken from the agency of care custody control today, designated to the selectmen to be disposed of, whether it's to the housing trust that we
Alright.
talked about, or sale, or lease, or those could still be taken care of.
Okay, and special town meeting is 2 weeks?
2-week notice.
Prior
has be
to-
posted, correct.
Okay. All right, second question. Last year, there was a pavement management plan approved, Article 10, that put funding in from Chapter 90 funds, free cash, and excise tax.
Correct.
When is the funding of that article being discussed? I guess I thought it doesn't really fit, I think it fits under the Board of Selectmen.
It doesn't, it would be part of the overall budget discussion. So whether you've been as involved in this document as perhaps the finance committee members and the select board have, there are about 20 tabs. One of them is the revenue. In the revenue tab, you'll see everything we expect to come in. Another is the expenditure tab. The expenditure tab shows where we anticipate it will go out. Last year was the first year we had a new line on the expenditure side that contemplated taking $50,000 from excise pursuant to that vote for the pavement management plan to be increased by $50,000 each year until it
Correct.
reaches $250,000. This year, in the draft budget that we'll be discussing later tonight, there is that second year installment, so it's up to $100,000 that's being called out of excise for that purpose. Then we get to the other piece, which is free cash.
Correct.
Free cash is, right now we have roughly $350,000 left in free cash, and we'll have snow and ice and any number of other issues that will be competing for those funds. So one of the things that you might recall when this bylaw for the pavement management plan was put forward is somebody who shall remain nameless, who's sitting in the front row, Andrea, made the point that you really should have an escape hatch in this bylaw that says subject to availability of funds or appropriation.
Right, and that's step 8
Correct.
now.
That is there in case we did get to a situation where there aren't sufficient funds for all of those needs. So if town meeting decides they'd rather place free cash here and not in pavement management, that proviso in the bylaw allows us to still be
Right.
offsetting.
So it's being discussed tonight?
That part of the budget is a bigger question, which is the pavement management plan overall, which isn't agenda to be discussed tonight. It's been discussed at prior meetings recently.
Right.
And the discussion about whether or not to go back out to vote and see if there's.
That's a
appetite.
separate piece. I was
Separate piece
worried
altogether.
about
Yep.
I was interested in knowing the pavement management plan piece, the funding for the bylaw that was
Yeah.
put into place.
Well,
Okay.
But it begs the question, because the bylaw has all of those pieces married together, and we don't have the major piece, because it got voted down by 6 votes. We don't have the piece of.
But that was a separate article. That was,
I'm talking about the bylaw. It was a separate article, but the bylaw contemplates each of those 3 things. Contemplates the debt exclusion, contemplates the free cash, and the excise, in addition to Chapter 90, which is a given.
Chapter 90 was the third thing that I was thinking. Okay, all right. Thank you.
Anybody else? Not, we'll go to 2.1 budget hearings. Up first, Board of Assessors. Come on down.
Thank you.
Go in and- So, Jim, what do we?
The budget message that went out this year, and everybody nearly to a T has lived by the mandate that was in the budget memo, which is to level fund unless and until we know better, unless there's a contractual obligation. So the assessors are no different. They've submitted a budget that is level funded. There's one issue that appears in the budget, but ultimately gets pulled out as a warrant article, which is their $27,500 for their outside services that are done by their outside agent. Other than that, there's not much in the assessor's budget. Vicki, I don't know
There's
if you-
just not enough.
As is-
It's the same as.
As is the case for everybody,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
mean, theirs is a pretty tight scan budget. You should have copies of it in front of you, and I know that you probably have yours there, and I've got it up on the screen here, so if there are any specific questions.
I don't have anything else.
I was just looking it over. I'm sorry I didn't have a chance to go through everything, but I don't see anything that concerns me on this one.
So I think we're good with, yep.
All right, thank you. You're amazing.
Next, right next to it, Karen, Council on Aging.
Council on Aging. I will come up. Hi, Jared. Hello, how are you? Good. How are you? Sit next to you. That's okay.
Okay, we did the same thing, or?
I mean, there's one anomaly, one blip in the repair and maintenance of equipment, because they took on a new piece of equipment that required a maintenance contract. That was a full-scale copier, printer, collator, lunch maker. So there's a copier. There's a copier contract that didn't exist in prior years.
Should we buy that, or is that a lease?
It's a lease.
Other than that, a lot of the salaries, which is the thing that, departments were most concerned about how we're handling, they're level unless there is an existing contract. For instance, there's the accountant and the treasury collector each have a contract that requires if they get positive evaluation, that they get a step. Everybody else is flatlined. All of that is tied to a couple of things: waiting on the Collins, which I'll be reporting on in my report, and then the employees, even once Collins is known, are still subject to collective bargaining, so it's still subject to negotiation and agreement at the table. So there's nothing showing here that's tipping a hand either way.
All this is fluid.
It is very much. And even, in fairness, without any consideration of wages, this document that exists tonight is still about $65,000 out. Which, all things considered, I was pleased with this time of year to be only $65,000
How
out.
much better it was last year?
It is, but it's still, those last dollars, particularly when we haven't yet considered anything on salaries, it's where it gets really difficult.
Okay.
On that, I don't know, if you have anything else you want to.
I just wanted to make the selectmen aware that we're getting bigger and bigger. And we had a +% increase in usage last year. And the senior population is 28% of the population now, so we're going to have to take that into consideration at some point very soon. All right?
Thank you. Town clerk.
Expecting that stuff.
Do you want me to go down and tell her that you guys are ready?
Yeah, that'd be great. On your way out, nice way to politely get out the door, too. Short and sweet.
Anybody from the library? Hey,
I'd be happy.
come on down. Please, skip ahead.
If I can just kind of frame the issue for this one, and then I'll shut up and let you speak. The $128,000 question, I guess, in this budget is what of the deputy chief's position? If there is to be a new chief, which Jay is currently serving as the interim, is it the expectation that there will also be a new deputy chief? My understanding, very casually, nothing formal has been discussed by the board, is that that wouldn't be the case. We would likely not have that second brass position, but instead would look at perhaps another sergeant or some other structure less than that top-heavy structure that exists currently. So in my copy of the budget, I do have that cell highlighted with a note to myself, conversion to question mark, question mark, question mark.
So as it stands in this budget, it's still in there?
In what you're seeing is, as the proposal, it's still there. What I have on my screen, which is many iterations after the proposal, has it actually broken out to a sergeant, just for my own edification to see what having a working on another line sergeant would do. But the version before this was deputy chief, the one before that was lieutenant. I mean, it's been all over the place.
So this is a possible place to see some of that.
Yeah, it's something that I'm really interested in knowing the magic that Jay's thinking of.
I mean, we don't have to decide tonight.
Pulling out his hat on it, right?
Sure, and I do think that there's some collective bargaining issues that we probably want to have that conversation in non-public for some obvious reasons. The other place I think that may be available to us is the shoulder fees for the year. It's my understanding they're going to come in considerably less than what we had projected. I still haven't gotten official notification of what they may be, but that may be something else.
I did get it.
Yeah.
So we're good there.
I took the liberty to just kind of bring a little thought bubbles for my simple mind. I want to pass that down to Jim too. It's no surprise to him. We've had these conversations, but just makes it a little easier. There's really on a level funded budget. There's not a lot of room for discussion or not a lot of reason to discuss. Although I will say that this is a work in progress. Really, I think the last time there was a budget done with any sort of long-range planning done was probably under Chief Marshall, to be very frank. And because of that, we've been kind of limping along, for lack of a better term. And this budget really doesn't reflect any sort of different direction. I still am learning a lot. I'm learning a lot about the facility. I'm learning a lot about the equipment. We've done a lot of things in the 2 years that I have been here in furtherance of stabilizing this budget. There are a couple of red flags, and Jim and I have these conversations on a regular basis, as I do with the town accountant as well. But just to go through it from top to bottom, the reserve officers line is being adjusted. It was adjusted to account for two officers, 2 reserve shifts per each officer per month. And we did adjust the pay rates for reserve officers to keep them in line and actually have them on the radar. They are adjusted to the top-end day shift patrol rate to make it simple. Not a lot of money, a small line. They are used as a supplementary staffing, as it were, and that kind of helps explain it. That should, over time, help offset our costs along the board and also help us a little bit with coverage. It's a conversation we will continue to have. The overtime line, again, we put in for a very modest increase this time around. I am flying the red flag that we are drastically over budget this year. due to, again, to the short staffing. We did put in for a modest increase. You can look at the tracking of it, that it comes in significantly more over the last a few years to the 120 that we budgeted. And Jim, correct me if I'm wrong, I think we actually requested more last year than the year before. So we've been asking for more each year, and still not going ahead of it. Hard to say. I have a spreadsheet that I keep, that I track overtime and why we're using it and where we're using it. And the payroll system that the town is, and time and attendance software that the town is moving to in fiscal '21 will help a great deal of understanding the use of overtime at a much better level. But suffice to say, at this point, it's a crapshoot, especially with the open spots that we've been trying to fill. For obvious reasons. There are some offsets in the budget. Obviously, you're going to have less in salaries, and you're going to have less in healthcare if we have these open spots. But again, you are just chasing that donut hole. The other thing, there's a bunch of reductions in lines. I kind of took care of explaining those in one fell swoop, which is just an aging force, not eligible for longevity. Their quin payments are less. Those types of things led to that reduction. The only other noteworthy one I wanted to make, two lines I wanted to make mention of, was the maintaining the building, maintaining the equipment, and then training. The maintaining the building, again, we are looking at new facility staff. That's going to help us a great deal to understand. We're reviewing service maintenance contracts in the building. The building's at that 30-year mark. It's starting to need some attention. I'm still trying to wrap my mind around what we pay for, what's paid for in the town's budget, those types of things. We did zero it out. We did it the last 2 years as well. We built it from the bottom, and there's always seems to be surprises in the works. I went before FinCom a week or two ago asking for a transfer because we did have an unexpected expense with our elevator. That thing is a sieve. It's cost us, I think it's $7,000 this year, probably $9,000 last year. I'm looking and reviewing service contracts and seeing if we can spread our wings and maybe use another company if this is the way it's going to work with that thing. But the facilities there is a point of on my radar of need of attention in order to stabilize those costs. Same with our equipment costs. Again, we're trying to normalize this, and one of the things, and I'll take you back, you may have heard from Lori about kind of these residual and legacy special articles that are left over from years prior. And we've done a good job of cleaning those up and getting those spent. The problem with that process was, in many ways, those special articles subsidized our very operating budget. And coming to terms with that and understanding what are foreseeable expenses and non-foreseeable expenses, what's maintenance, what's not maintenance, is taking some time to work through that stuff. We do have good software to take care of that. We are tracking it at a much more granular level. We'll continue to do that. Training, it's a significant growth in there. Smaller line, only $23,000 or so, $26,000. I did fund our in-service training, which wasn't funded in the past, and I also included academy training for 2 officers should we hire officers that are in need of that academy training. We were left flat-footed last year with that.
Questions?
Not on his budget. I know Jay's been working hard to get his staffing levels up. And is this budget sufficient enough to get you to that point? That's what I'm concerned about.
So all of the full-time positions are budgeted, and one of the things that is challenging when you do that is if you budget for open spots, I almost have to budget high. Budget for a guy with a master's, budget for the midnight shift, those types of things. So the budget does include all of our approved positions up to and including the chief of police, the one that you see. The one that Jim and I are kind of actively working, throwing around different scenarios is a different endeavor, but this one is budgeted to fill all of the positions that we are approved for. It's pretty safe to say that if I get a position today, it's going to be sometime, probably as much as 6 months before it gets filled. So that interceding time, we're going to be eating into that overtime, and it is never a push. It's always a negative for us. But it is budgeted with full staffing, kind of a doomsday scenario as far as who they are. They're expensive. They're going to be on the higher end of things. They're going to be on midnight shift, that kind of thing. So yes, it does. Not being fully staffed, though, presents a whole another level of challenges. I'd like to see a whole budget where we're fully staffed so I can really get my mind wrapped around it. But it does account for all of our approved positions, Mr. Klein.
Okay.
I'm good with it. I think that we need to have a conversation with the town administrator here in the future concerning facilities.
Yes.
And concerning the structure of the police department going forward.
Okay. Put that on the future agenda.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you.
You want to handle the comm budget while I'm here, Jim?
Yeah, communications, sure. And ACO.
Sure. So the communications budget is, it's only 4 lines, I think, total. We've really, over the last 2 budget cycles, have changed it or have morphed it into our communication/IT budget. Those lines, the 4 lines are involved in. One is the Neshoba bill, which I just discussed. I budgeted $215. It does look like it will come in significantly less than that, which is good.
174.
174, that's outstanding. So the other lines are phones, air cards, internet, those types of things. Repair and maintain equipment takes care of some software issues. Preventative maintenance on our equipment, towers and equipment, our generators. We have a number of communication emergency networks that we need to be a part of that. Those tuition fees are pretty high, or usage fees or membership fees. And then the other line takes care of the IT services for public safety. So there's really only those 4 lines. They're very tight as they are. The repair and maintain equipment one is one that is actually kind of a little bit fluid, only because we are upgrading equipment and therefore the maintenance drops to be preventative only, not replacing and upgrading. We're still a year or 2, I think, away from being able to just get to maintain mode only. But this one does provide for preventative maintenance on all the towers in the community and our generators as well.
Okay. Outstanding. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Kathy? Hello. You were early for you, sorry.
Oh, that's all right. Vicky came down and told me, so that was good.
So town clerk, where are we at here? Sorry, is it off? Oh, there it is. Never mind.
Setting the table for this one.
Okay.
Hardly a change at all. Salaries would be the one place where there'd be consideration given if and when we get to that point. We're just not there yet. Same story,
Same story.
Collins, and then collective bargaining for at least the assistant. Kathy's not part of a collective bargaining agreement, obviously, as an elected official, but, so all salaries are still that second tier of discussion, and we're not there yet.
Okay. Questions? Done?
No, I have no questions on this. For a change.
That was easy.
So, for all budgets? or
Well, then
just-
go to elections, because that one does
Because
pop.
that one does, there are changes on the election budget, due to the number of elections.
Again, beyond your control, you're responding to the reality that we know is coming.
Right, exactly. And we have the big one, the presidential this year with 2 weeks early voting.
So next year we're gonna have,
So we're gonna have a primary in September.
okay.
Possibly a week of early voting then, when we had it this past primary. I'm expecting them to
Seems
push
that's
that
the norm
out.
now.
Yeah, and then 2 weeks of early voting is what they did in 2016, so I assume that would be the same.
Okay.
And so that's what the increases are in that budget.
They're
Not much
necessary,
we
so.
can do about that.
Okay.
And then I think the rest of my budgets, pretty much,
It's flat,
I think there's one increase for census and street listings, that's due to,
38 to 4,400, I think.
yes. And that's due to, postage increase, printing costs.
Okay.
And everything else is the same.
Good.
Okay, great, thanks.
Library, I don't see anybody. Yes, Joe?
We did approve Kathy's budget in FinCom, so
Okay.
we're gonna dump that.
Check it off the list. Library, I don't see anybody from the library here, the fire chief, so. Fire chief, let's see if anybody shows up.
Get that right out of the way.
How do you do?
So, what do you have, what do you not have? I brought copies if you need them, if you have budgets,
I
you're
believe we
good.
have everything in.
They have your submittal.
Okay, awesome.
They don't yet have my massacre
Do you have level or needs?
level.
Okay. So, pretty simple then. Start off as I try and do every year. Thank you guys for your support. Over the last 6 years that I've been chief, we've made some significant progress in the department, and both in equipment and facilities and personnel. We've made some adjustments to wages to be more competitive. So last year, as you may recall, I submitted a strategic plan to increase staffing, and you supported that, and again, thank you. We hired 3 full-time and took one of our full-time and put them on shifts. We now have 24/7 coverage of one person. That was a 2-phase plan. That was phase 1, and phase 2 would be to replace the other per diems with full-time staff to create more reliability. We have struggled to fill and maintain those 3 full-time positions. I'm currently short 1. You'll see a memo to hire. We hired 3 and we've lost 1 already. You'll see a memo next week to hire somebody to replace that position. Long story short, I don't think we're in any position to take that to the next step, so I did not submit that this year. I think we need a good solid year under our belts under this staffing structure to see how it's going to work, and then consider maybe next year if we want to add to that staffing. But so there's no increase there. There's kind of 2 pieces to our budget, and Chief Klein or Selectman Klein knows this, is the revenue side of things. So we've increased our rates over the year to increase our revenue of EMS. We're generating about $500,000 a year in revenue. And I just wanted to take note in this year's budget that in the past few years it's creeped up, that we've tapped that for legitimate reasons for staffing and so forth, that to a level that's not sustainable. So we're requesting this year, or to at least bring it up this year. What I requested in the budget was $425 out of ambulance receipts. I think there's a plan to take more than that, but if we're going to continue to replace ambulances and medical supplies and stuff out of that account, when we're taking $475, $25,000 a year, leftovers not going to cut it, so we need to make some adjustments there.
Okay.
Otherwise, it's pretty flat, or level, I would say, with the exception of contractual increases. Mine is in color because I like to see colors. But so the level funded is, everything that's highlighted is contractual. Mainly, last year the union signed a contract with the town and got wage adjustments. And those wage adjustments also included step increases. So those are built into this budget as anticipated. And other than that, it's flat.
Okay. So same deal with the collective bargaining and
Correct.
all that fun stuff. Okay.
On the issue of ambulance receipts, this is an issue that the chief and I have stared at each other across many tables just like this and just looked at. Because I know when we had the discussion about implementing the staffing change, that it was, how can it be funded? We need to find a way to make certain that we're not taking 3 full-time staff and their benefit load out of some other person's budget in order to do what we want to do. So part of it was savings that he realized within his budget by not having to fill those shifts by per diems, and part of it was going to be to rely more heavily on the ambulance receipts. I think it's a fair point that we need to look at that and make certain that the expectation of the amount for an ambulance, which is the primary capital need that comes out of that, is something that we're going to have sufficient ability to continue to do. And we got to strike that fine balance. As of right now, I still have the 475 plugged in. That's where we were last year based on the new bodies that we brought on. So that'll be part of the discussion moving forward into the next month or 2.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a real concern, and I've voiced this with the chief. I've also spoken to a town accountant, and she shares the same concern that I have, that is not sustainable going forward, realizing that the intent of this account, when we set it up, and Andrew knows this because I'm the one responsible for it, is that it was to offset capital items for the EMS side of the house. Anything that was left over that wasn't needed to budget for the next ambulance or emergency equipment would be used to offset the operating costs. Though he's done a nice job of bringing in additional revenue over the year, but he also has, as the manager of that account, to make sure that he is keeping enough funds available for the future in order to buy those capital items. So I share the same concern as does the town accountant, that by taking additional funds to pay for what I think is the benefit load,
Sure.
that in the future, we're gonna run into some problems without having to raise rates again. But unfortunately, the more you raise the rates, the bigger your write-offs are gonna be, because you're not, you gotta understand that most of the write-offs that are happening today are due because of Medicare. And so based on the fact that you gotta write off a lot of Medicare, even if you raise the rates, and with the population getting older, your write-offs are gonna increase. So you're not really collecting any additional revenues, because a lot of it is getting written off. So you have to watch that as you're going forward. So we need to have that discussion, because I have a big concern that you're not gonna have money here, and we're gonna have to tap back into the taxes in order to fund future capital purchases.
I think the additional piece, because we're having the conversation now, the additional piece that I'm sure the town accountant shared with you is that she does also have a concern that we're not going as aggressively after those uncollected. That there is, and again, I won't pretend to understand it as clearly as she does when she articulates it to me, but she believes that there is still an ability to collect some of that amount that's currently being written off.
And she and I had that conversation.
I'm aware.
Okay,
Yeah.
so, and I've spoken to Mark about that as well.
Okay. Great.
So just to be transparent, I do want to point out there are two things in here that they're contractual, but they're increases that were mistakes or things I missed last year, just to be transparent. So when we moved Ben Namara from shift work to, from being days on the shift, I did not calculate in his vacation replacement. So there is an increase in here that's listed as a contractual increase, but for vacation replacement for Ben of $3,360. And then another thing that was missed was each of those employee is, by contract, is entitled to $500 for EMT recertification. That $1,500 wasn't included in last year's budget, so there's a $1,500 increase there as well. So they are contractual, but I want to be transparent, they were missed last year by me.
Any other questions, Sean?
No.
Very good.
Great, thank you.
Sir?
Thanks, Chief.
Where are we? Library is the last one.
Get John's in
Since we don't have any library, do you want to push this to next week, or?
I think it was supposed to be at 7. That's what we were told.
Oh,
It
okay.
is, yeah.
So Stacy's going to be here and Val.
Okay, we'll,
Can we go on to the
we'll
other?
revisit that then.
Okay.
Where are we?
3-1.
3-1, so appointments. Appoint Lynn Giancotti and Kim Gilbert to the American Flag Committee. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion that we appoint Lynn Giancotti and Kim Gilberti to the American Flag Committee effective March 10th, 2020 to June 30th, 2020.
Second. Questions, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 3-2, appoint Carol Hofstad as associate member of the planning board.
Mr. Chairman, I was advised by our visiting front row member of the planning board that this isn't going to go forward as written, and that instead Geraldine's going to be stepping down from her position in hopes of being named the associate. and that Carol is going to be running a sticker campaign for the actual full seat.
So this is a
So
take
this
no
is-
action?
This is take no action for
Okay.
tonight.
Need a motion on that one?
Nope. Point, 3.3, appoint Jason Staples as seasonal labeler for the Cemetery Parks Commission. Can I get a motion on that?
I make a motion that we appoint Jason Staples as the seasonal laborer for the Cemetery and Parks Commission effective March 10th, 2020, and Joshua Maley as the seasonal laborer for the Parks and Cemetery.
Okay, yes.
Whoop, went too far, sorry. Upon passing of a medical exam and query check.
Sure. Second to both appointments. Any questions? Does that cover everything? The
It
query
does.
checks? Okay,
Yep.
all right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, on both. 3.6, appoint Jessica Brothers as a per diem library tech. Can I get a motion on that, please?
I make a motion that we appoint Jessica Brothers as the per diem library tech effective March 10th, 2020, contingent upon the passing of a medical exam and query check.
I'll second that. Any discussion on that one? Nope. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.1, discussion, renaming that creek to Blackfly Creek. I know we discussed this a few weeks ago, and we have official withdraw of former name and.
We do, and just looking for the vote of the board for the new name.
So we're just going to approve approve you signing a letter of recommendation, wasn't that the request?
Yep.
Okay.
It just wasn't agended last meeting.
Yes, that's right, okay.
I make a motion that we approve the renaming of the Blackfly Brook. Is that right?
Yeah, Blackfly.
Blackfly Brook, and having the town administrator send a letter.
I'll second that. So this is the last step for them to do their filing?
Hopefully.
Sure.
So seconded, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.2, mandatory referral for zoning board of appeals of variance. So this is one of those, thank you for your referral.
Unless you feel strongly otherwise, yes.
Can I get a motion, Don?
Yep, I make a motion that we thank the zoning board of appeals for their mandatory referral, and we have no comment.
Do we need a vote on that, or?
Yes.
Okay, second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4.3, mandatory referral, planning board, stormwater management permit.
I assume this is the same thing.
Correct.
I started to read it, but they lost me.
Yeah, this is a long one. I assume this has to do with the solar array, isn't that what this, where Pine Ridge is?
Well, it's that property. I wasn't certain if it was the solar or if it was consideration of rebuilding, but it is that property.
Okay. Can I get a motion then?
I make a motion that we thank the planning board for their mandatory referral, and that the town administrator, excuse me, thank the planning board for their mandatory review, but we have no comment.
I'll second that. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We have 1, 2, 4. 4.4, review approved sign one-day special liquor license for Derek Forrest Townsend Ridge Country Club on March 14th. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion that we approve and sign a one-day liquor license. Want to do that out of session?
I do have it tonight.
Do. Okay, make a motion that we approve and sign a one-day liquor special license for Derek Forrest Townsend Ridge Country Club from March 14th, 2020, in conjunction with a casino night for the North Middlesex Band and the sale hours from 5 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-5, another one, review approved signed special one-day license for Derek Forest Townsend Ridge Country Club on March 21st. Can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we approve and sign a one-day special license for Derek Forest Townsend Ridge Country Club on March 21st, 2020, in conjunction with a 50th birthday party with the sale hours from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I'll second that. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-6, review approved signed special one-day license for Derek Forest Townsend Ridge Country Club, March 27th. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion that we approve and sign a one-day special license for Derek Forest Townsend Ridge Country Club on March 27th, 2020, in conjunction with the indoor demo event with the sale hours from 12 p.m. to 10 p.m.
I'll second that. Any discussion?
Nope.
All those in favor? Aye.
Can't write and talk at the
I'm
same
sorry.
time.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I missed a page too, by the way.
I did?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
4-7, last one, review approved sign one-day special license for Derek Forest Townsend Ridge Country Club on March 28th. Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion that we approve and sign a one-day special license for Derek Forest at the Townsend Ridge Country Club on March 28th, 2020, in conjunction with a Pat Brody shelter benefit with the sale hours from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m.
I'll second. Any questions?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Especially the second page. Sign there.
Those should be all.
Yep. Good.
Yep.
4-8, discussion official posting location.
Mr.
Little
Chairman.
background?
Yes. A little over a year ago, the board deliberated and took a vote to change the official posting location for public notices to be the town website. It had historically been the town bulletin board outside the town hall. One of the concerns that was expressed at the time and was thought to be highly unlikely to ever occur would be what if the website went down? Well, the company that hosts our website and hosts about a third of the websites in the Commonwealth went down for a couple of days a week or more ago, and the law required us to cancel a number of meetings that were otherwise scheduled because as the official bulletin board or notice location, the public didn't have access to it. So the hope this evening is to have a discussion about that, as long or as briefly as you'd like it to be, and perhaps come out the other end of the discussion with a vote to make the town bulletin board the official notification location for town legal notices, and to the extent allowed, concurrently have the website as the official notification location as well. If it can only be one, if the Secretary of State kicks it back, then it would be the hard bulletin board.
I'm all for reverting it, just to avoid this in the future, because
Yeah,
stuff
I
breaks.
don't think anybody would have had the notion that the entire system would go down. So I do agree, but I still think that we should try to see if the
Secretary of State.
Secretary would
Yep.
approve it also to be on the website, because there are a lot of people that can't get here.
There's nothing that would preclude us from internally having a policy that says
Yeah, I'd
they
like,
get posted on the website.
I'd like to revise our policy that the calendar is, bulletin board's obviously the primary posting, but the requirement stating that they have to be posted on the town calendar.
Yep.
And kept up to date by, I guess, the town clerk.
Okay, so would it please the board then if I notify the Secretary of State's office of the change to the outdoor bulletin board being the official, and if allowable, concurrently that the website be the official, and if that gets kicked back, as it can't be both, that we amend the policy internally to make certain that while it's official on the bulletin board, it's also required to be done on the website.
Yes.
I'm
I'm fine with that too. Okay.
A move in a second, anybody?
I make a motion that we revert back and have the official posting on the bulletin board, and if the Secretary of State allows, also have it officially posted on the website, failing that we revise the policy.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
I believe the libraries.
Library. You're up.
Oh, library, rep, ready? Wow, all right. We have this nice little handout for you.
Okay.
Oh, sorry. Here we go. Would you like one? I really would. All right, Andrew, would you like one?
Love one.
I thought you would. I feel that. Anticipated. Would you like one too? Thank you. All right, and if no one else wants one, then we're in good shape. All right, do you have questions for me? What to say here?
These increases.
Just the, so if you turn to the page that looks like this, that one, yes. I think it's the 4th page or so, this one. The little bar graph. The only increases are for our state aid requirements. So we have to, there's a formula that we have to do, which is on the back, that you have to take your last, and there's a typo there. I did not make this. That's supposed to be 18, 19, and 20, but it says 18, 18, and 19, but it's 18, 19, and 20, and then
Anybody
calculate.
hear that, boss?
Hey, you know. Yeah, the person who wrote it isn't here either, so I probably should have caught that. So anyways, so the formula is on the back. So basically, this is the number that will keep us certified next year is 338,165. And that is the number that we need to spend of our budget on books and materials, which is, you know, a similar increase to as per normal. And the CW Mars, we have a little, and our internet went up, so by a little bit, so we put in for that. And then I think my salary, along with the contract, is the only other thing.
Yes.
Yes, and the trustees are here if you have any questions about that.
No, I think we covered that last year.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only, I think, staffing change, increased salary, right?
Yes, so there's no nothing except for a required, you know, state required materials fee and CW Mars, which is our network fees, and the internet. Anything else?
Questions?
No, this one
If I may just, for your,
Sure.
for your benefit, Stacy, the number for the director's salary is not just 1 year's worth of salary increase. It's the one that was done mid-year and the other contracted amount.
Yep.
Just so people know, that's not just
Right.
1 year, that is a
Right.
2-year.
It's a 2-year. Yep. So,
Okay.
all right, if anybody has any questions, though, they can email me, come see me. I'm there from 9 to 9 tomorrow at the library, so you know where to find me.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, that's budgets for everybody. Now we're back to our regular schedule for 9. Authorize the town administrator to sign services contract with Weston and Sampson for MVP and hazard mitigation. So,
You've already authorized me to sign the state contract. This is just now the contract that we will be executing to be able to spend the money from the state that you authorized me to sign the contract for. So it's just the second part.
can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion, we authorize the town administrator to sign the service contract with Western and Sampson for the integrating of the MVP and the hazardous mitigation plan.
I'll second that. Questions?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 410, review authorize request to use LRTA bus for Earth Day on the 25th.
This has become an annual,
Yes.
usual and customary, so this is just letting LRTC, the Lowell Regional Transit Authority, know that you're okay with them supplying a bus for Earth Day purposes.
This is the overflow parking piece.
And there's a document here with one spot for a signature, so you guys can arm wrestle over it.
No, I'll let them be.
Can I get a motion, please?
I make a motion that we authorize the request to use the LRTA bus for the Earth Day on April 25th, 2020.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Question? Any provision for the rain date?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Any provision for the rain date?
I haven't seen an official announcement of Earth
No,
Day,
I haven't either.
so I would contact Karen. I haven't seen, she usually gives us something for our meetings, for announcement, so I don't have anything in this week, so. We'll check. 411, review report recommendation for the police chief screening committee.
The police chief screening committee went forward with your direction and addressed the issue of an internal posting and debated the issue at some length, and then considered whether or not, as a committee, they wanted to reach back out to you as a board and suggest that there be an open posting and not just an internal posting. At the end of the discussion, the position that prevailed was, what message do you send if you have someone that has interest and has qualifications internally, and the policy in the town is to provide for an internal candidate to be given an opportunity before seeking candidates elsewhere, if you don't do that? So the decision was made by the committee to do the internal posting and take up the one applicant that was received. The one applicant that applied for the position was Deputy Chief Jay Sartell, or current Interim Chief Jay Sartell. The committee held a meeting, tried to hold it once, but the website went down, so they had to reconsider. They did hold a meeting. They had an interview. They previously rated the candidacy based on paper evaluation tool that's used in the profession. Match that up against the actual interview. The expectation was there'd be a written report this evening. The chair of the committee had a family emergency, and as of 15 minutes ago, so I keep checking my phone, was feverishly typing still. So it may pop through any moment. But suffice it to say that the report you're going to get is going to be the recommendation, unanimous recommendation, that Deputy Chief, current interim Police Chief Jay Sartell, be considered by you as the candidate to fill the vacant permanent Chief of Police position.
So next steps for us, would it be an interview or?
Next step for you would be whatever pleases you. It could be that you interview, it could be that you each agree to sit one-on-one and you know, get any specific concerns you have addressed one-on-one before an interview. It could be that you accept the recommendation of the committee and make an appointment. Anything in between. It's really your call.
Your feeling is?
My feeling is, one, I'd like to read the report first.
Yes.
But I would like the opportunity to sit and talk with Jay. I assume that it will be a public forum.
Absolutely.
And I think it's important for the community as a whole to hear what he has to say. And between the two of us, we come up with questions.
Is that something you'd like to try to schedule as an off night or at your next regular?
Well, I think next week's our next regular. Off
2 weeks
schedule.
out. It would have been 2 weeks out, I thought.
No, because we were off schedule from last week because it's the first and third. Last week was.
Yeah, you're right.
And since I'm on a travel ban, I have no problem Meeting next week.
Yeah, I can do it.
So the 17th,
Yeah, and then we can do the other budgets and start.
recognizing it's St. Patrick's Day, right? So we will have to.
I got my green on today, big deal.
Okay.
I think we're past that age.
So notify the interim chief of his interview to be scheduled for what time would you like him first up?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That works for you?
When I next see him, I'll tell him.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll make it work.
Excellent. And as soon as the report comes through, it'll be right to you.
Okay.
And that is a public document as well, so I've referenced the report in this public meeting, so it is public if anybody is watching at home or in the room tonight that has an interest in it. It'll be available. Just give me a call and I'd be happy to provide it.
Okay. All right, thank you. On to 5.1 work session, town administrator updates and report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's been a little while since we've met, so I do have a number of things here to deal with. Under personnel issues, number 1, land use coordinator. After reviewing and interviewing the most recent applicants, it became clear to the participating land use board member, Ms. Veronica Kell of the Planning Board, and I, that the skill sets were not a sufficiently good enough match for us to make a recommendation to the board. Instead, she and I recommend that we go back out into the marketplace once more and that we expand our target market with the addition of some other professional journals that we've not yet used, and I will keep you advised of our progress moving forward. So, actually took the opportunity to send the advertisement electronically to Veronica last night, and she offered a couple of thoughts on how to make it a little clearer what it is that we are here, because it's a curious title. It's not a terribly common title. So with those edits having been made, the expectation will be to get it out in the MMA as we have in the past, but additionally in the APA, the American Planning Association, and in the Planner's Digest, which is one that Beth Faxon regularly gets, and she said that she believes that there's quite a readership with. Beyond that, I'll also forward it off to the schools that have MPA programs. So you look at the likes of Clark and Suffolk, Framingham State has a good one. Those are the top 3 that come to mind. So we'll make certain to get it out to those schools as well.
Okay.
The board action requested, none requested on that. Next is 1B, building commissioner. One participating land use board member, Bill Cadigan, of the ZBA, and I have interviewed the applicants for the building commissioner position and have 2 options to present to you. Option 1, hire a full-time commissioner, as we have historically here in Hamilton. We have 2 very qualified and interested candidates, one of whom is our current interim and who has been our alternate for over 12 years. He also lived in town for 32 years until very recently moving to Pepperell. Option 2, hire a part-time commissioner as a 1099 contractor and a part-time local inspector as an employee, totaling the same 20 hours. Pros and cons. The pros of option 2, the scenario would limit the cost as there would be no health benefits for either and no union benefits for the contractor. This option conceivably would save up to $15,000. So that's real money. The cons. In this scenario, we would have a level of disconnect in the level of service we provide our citizens. It would not be uncommon to have the commissioner as the plan reviewing agent not be the person doing the actual inspections. While this is able to be managed, it is not optimal. The examples that have been given to me by people I've spoken with would be, if I'm the building commissioner and I'm reviewing the plans for your addition, and I go out and I do a site inspection and look at the plans against the actual conditions, and then 3 steps down the road, the local inspector goes out to do the next inspection, not having had the benefit of seeing what was there before. There's a disconnect that can sometimes cause some difficulties. So the strong recommendation from people that I've spoken to in the field is, if you can avoid it, to not split it. So what I've got under board action is, may we discuss the issue, and I do have a recommendation to offer after discussion.
I'll I think I'd like to spend a little time with you on this a little bit more.
Okay.
Privately, just to talk about the pros and cons a little bit more, just to
Sure.
understand that. This is the first step we can talk about it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I will be out, as I previously advised you, but I will have my phone with me. I will have laptop with me, so I'm able through VPN to be as though I'm sitting at my desk anyway.
Okay.
So feel free, even though you know that I'm out, call me whenever you can, whenever you have a moment or an interest.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you. Next, we have C, Water Interim Engineering Services Contract Extension. The Board of Water Commissioners voted to approve another addendum that would extend McEnroe Consulting Services contract to June 30th of 2020. The addendum would not exceed a total of 120 additional hours or $17,000 for a not to exceed total of $26,800. And this was voted by the board. And under board action requested, if it pleases the board, a vote to approve, subject to confirmation of the town accountant regarding availability of funds. I did speak with Lori, the town accountant, in advance, and she just wanted to make certain that before you signed or approved a contract, that she was able to certify that they've got the money to do so. It's believed that they will, but she wants to just confirm it to make certain.
Okay.
So if it meets your approval, a vote to approve and execute subject to the town accountant's certification of availability of funds.
I make a motion that we approve the interim water engineering services contract extension as previously voted to approve the addendum that would extend McEnroe's consulting service contract to June 30th, 2020. The addendum will not exceed a total of 120 additional hours or 17,000 for a total not to exceed 26,800, assuming availability of funds.
I'll second. So obviously they haven't hired anyone yet?
They have not. They have not.
Okay, so this is just a further extension so they can continue their search?
Correct.
Okay. All right, any other questions, Tom?
Nope.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Next, in 1D, under personnel, we have Water Department Administrative Assistant hour increase. The Board of Water Commissioners voted to increase the number of hours for the office assistant's position from 19 hours per week to 30 hours per week. Once the assistant is hired, Terry, the current assistant, would reduce her time to 10 hours per week to facilitate training of the new person. The office administrator is scheduled to be on leave effective July 8th and may be out for as many as 10 to 12 weeks. Given that this is the busy time of the year, year-end financials, July 1st billing, and final reads of meters, it's possible that they may need Terry to help out until the office administrator returns to work. Presently, there remains $45,000 in unspent funds in the superintendent's line item. That is sufficient to cover the increase. So, under board action requested, if it pleases the board, a vote to approve and post, subject to confirmation of the town accountant regarding availability of funds.
I make a motion that we approve the water administrative assistant hour increase.
Correct.
Do I need to read this whole thing
No.
again? Or-
Nope.
All right, as previously stated, and that the board approve, subject to the confirmation from town accountant for availability of funds.
I'll second that. Question to that $45,000 in the superintendent line, what if they hire somebody tomorrow?
If they hire somebody tomorrow, that's more than half of the annual salary, and we're coming on 3/4 of the year through, so there'd be sufficient funds still.
Okay. Any questions?
I feel better if Lori certifies as much, but
Yes.
that's what it would be.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, and then in 1E, Human Resources Grants Administration. As a part of their most significant recommendation, the Collins Center is going to be recommending the town hire a part-time human resource position into the Selectmen's office. So, pause for an editorial note. This isn't news. We've actually had this budgeted as both an internal hire and as a outside contract for the past 3 years. We currently have $20,000 budgeted to perform human resource work on contract basis that could be used for this purpose going forward. Additionally, we still have the need and desire for a grant administration person on staff. We currently have $35,000 funded for this position in the Selectmen's budget. I'm recommending combining the two and advertising for a full-time position to split the duties between the two needs. Interestingly, there are a few combined human resource finance grant positions advertised in the MMA over the last month. One of the things that we got feedback on the grants administrator was, as a part-time position, it wasn't attractive. But if we're able to combine it and find somebody with the combined skill set to do both, it being a full-time position will get better traction. So I currently have it plugged into the budget as I presented, but ultimately that budget isn't real unless and until you've voted to approve it. So under board action, if it pleases the board, a vote to approve the plan subject to final balancing of the budget.
I would still like to look at outsourcing that as well, if that's
Which part?
the, as a secondary piece to it, the human resource, or the HR piece of it,
Okay.
just as an option.
Okay.
To them. Again, I'm not sure, I mean, I know you see there's split duties out there, but contingency wise, if we don't find that somebody with the split duties and we have to make a decision on one or the other.
Sure.
Obviously, human resources is probably first, but
Yep.
I want to have options moving forward.
Absolutely. One of the ways we addressed that in the past is, it is so hot in here still, is funding it as a salaried position in the annual and giving it a push between then and the special to try to accomplish it. And if it's not able to be accomplished, then at the special, seeking a vote to transfer the funds back down to the contract line and then proceed with the contract. But we can spend some time talking about that between
we
now
have
and
time.
when this is real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with you, same thing.
Excellent. Number 2, financial updates, fiscal 21 budget update. We've spent some time this evening already going over a number of budgets. The big picture, and I'll email a copy of this version 12 to you before I leave this evening. About $65,000 out of balance, and there are several things that's predicated upon. One is the ambulance receipts that we talked about, so there's an asterisk next to that. The other note that is worthy of putting on the table is, again, nothing on salaries. So when we get the Collins report, which I'll be addressing in a moment, there is likely going to need to be a conversation about whether the report makes sense, and if it makes sense, what to do about it and with it.
Okay.
So I'll email this to you. I'd encourage you, I'll send it to you as a live Excel spreadsheet, so you can play around with it. You can poke at the formulas, run it front and back. I'd encourage any input, be it global or be it micro.
Okay. Fair enough.
We are currently at that 65,000 out, with the assumption that the school budget, as has been certified a week ago, is covered. So it's another discussion that we need to have, I think, as a community, about what is a sustainable increase for the education budget. This will be the third year running with a $500,000 plus increase for education. To give you some perspective, the entirety of the general government budget, so non-education, is around $8.5 million. So each year, from year to year, we can raise no more than, if you push, $575,000. This year's school increase takes all of that.
Right.
So that leaves for police, fire, highway, all administration, finance, and other social services, no new revenue. So we're rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic, so to speak.
Yeah.
So
I'd like to, one, I'd reach out, if you could reach out to Brad to see if he can attend our next meeting.
absolutely,
I wanna
and
have
he and I spoke on Friday about that, and he's game and willing to come at your call, so.
Okay, because I think we were quite clear last year when we met with them in Pepperell at the same time that
Yeah.
can't keep doing this, so.
And I understand the position that he is in and the school committee are in. They have mandates. They have fixed overhead costs. So even with a reduced student population, the savings aren't an automatic realization because you still have those costs of staff and costs of building and costs of everything that comes with staff. Roughly in excess of 70% of the budget is tied to labor. Staff and benefits. So there's not a lot of wiggle room they have. One of the discussions we had was last year that they had a number of positions that they'd be retiring and they'd be hiring back at a lesser rate. So there was to be savings. They had retirements, they hired back at lesser rates, but that savings was picked up by the need for 9.5 additional positions that are new in the budget this year. It's easy to get upset about that and say, well, why are you hiring 9.5 positions? When you delve into it, you see that they have students that are special education students that have plans that the district is required to meet, and they could meet them by sending students to a program outside of the school that handles that need, or try to handle it in-house. And handling it in-house is far more economical, it's far more inclusive, and that's what they're choosing to do. So those 9.5 positions, while it's an increase, it's less of an increase and it's a better opportunity than going the other way.
Okay.
So I encourage you to poke at him. I do feel for him because he has
I know.
a difficult
but
spot.
I just wanted to feel our pain too, so.
Sure.
Okay.
All right, state budget allocation. The fiscal 20 state budget allocation, I've enclosed a contract that will allow us to draw down the $70,000 of funding that was approved in the state budget for the replacement of the sidewalks in the common. If it pleases the board, execution of the contract. You should each have a copy of it. All I have is a Xerox copy anyway, so either of your copies would be sufficient. But this allows us before the end of the fiscal year to claim the funds that Senator Tran was successful and Representative Harrington was supportive in getting for the sidewalks for the common.
Can I get a motion?
I make a motion that we approve and sign the contract to draw down the $70,000 of funding that was approved by the state for the replacement of sidewalks in the common.
And second. Questions? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
And there we go, right there. One signature again. All right, and then financial update C, the fiscal 21 state budget requests and priorities. As you're aware, both Senator Tran and Representative Harrington have reached out to us, thank you, to solicit I've lost my place, to solicit our state budget requests. Under board action requested, can we discuss the issue and determine what matters to submit? So we've had this discussion each of the last several years, what things are a priority for Townsend to submit for consideration in either a bond funding or as an earmark within the existing operating budget. We've had both bond funding that's been granted for the Veterans Memorial over in the park. We've had actual budget money, the $70,000 that we just discussed a moment ago, that's within the budget. So what's the thought? Do you have
Do roads fall under that?
They do not.
Okay.
Roads would not. It's got to be specific project based. We've had discussions in the past about the potential reuse of the Hart Library and potential reuse of the original center station, fire station, Squannacook Station. Bless you.
I'd like to think about this a little more, and maybe we can bring it up again next week.
Okay. And for any, I've sent it out to department heads as well, so anybody else that's sitting home watching or here that has a thought about what could be of use and benefit to the community. I think we have a couple of weeks left before we should have something in.
All right.
I know you said that roads weren't included, but what about sidewalks? So would that be included, general sidewalk?
It could be. We had a discussion about sidewalks the year that we requested the sidewalks within the common, and if I recall correctly, it was if they were able to be tied into some other initiative, walkability in a downtown, school safety, interconnection with a walking or bicycling pathway. So if there's a way to connect it to something bigger and
Yeah, I think there is. I think at least in the harbor area.
Sure.
Given the fact that they're well ahead on working.
And we do have, this predates me considerably, but I was advised that we do have, I believe it's a $100,000 appropriation for sidewalk work, 25,000 of which, I stand to be corrected, but I believe I'm accurate on it, 25,000 of which was designated to be used for sidewalk work in the harbor in conjunction with the bike path. So if we, for instance, were able to say, Senator Tran and Representative Harrington, we have this $25,000 that we want to put as skin in the game towards this larger issue of connectivity with the path and sidewalks, that might be an attractive option.
So I'd like to come with a list, each of us, next meeting, and we can talk about potential.
Okay, cool. Excellent.
Rob,
Thank
you
you.
had a question?
Yeah, the planning board came before you guys, maybe 2 months ago, with that UPWP feasibility study for walkability, bikeability. Tomorrow night is the MJTC meeting that I'll be attending. Have you seen anything on that came back
I have not.
from them? So I can't be certain, but I know that in the materials that they sent out for tomorrow night's meeting, Dawn, do you get those from Brad Harris?
Yes. I also got something today.
Townsend was ranked, our projects were ranked 1 and 2.
I thought I saw something get canceled or was it?
I don't know the status of it, but anyway, it would fit right in with all of the things you were just talking
Well,
about.
we put it on the list.
You got it. All right, next we get into 3 project updates. Collins Center. I'm advised as of today that the Collins Center will, and this is when I thought your next meeting was 2 weeks away, so allow me to edit live in real time. I'm advised that the Collins Center will have their draft report and findings available at your next meeting, so that instead of next week would be the following week.
Okay.
There was a 2-week window left for them to have everything wrapped up in draft form for your comment. Next is B Town IT contract. After soliciting quotes from outside vendors and analyzing the responses, see attached, the contract will be married to an in-house IT staff person currently budgeted for up to 19, to keep it under benefits, 19 hours per week in the draft budget. It may be that 19 is heavy. That'll be part of the discussion as we go forward here. But when you get to the document in the packet, you will see that had 3 responses, and each of them was responsive. So you'll be looking first at the document that has the small spreadsheet on the front. It says Townsend IT bid tally sheet. So there were 3 submittals, and each of the 3 was responsive, so they're all active and in play. There was a requirement that they bid on an annual IT support, and the pages that follow show the breakdown of what annual IT support was comprised of. So just to get it into the record clearly, daily review to include connectivity up and down, patch levels, CPU performance, hard drive space, and memory allocation. So they were required to give us an item cost, a monthly cost, and an annual cost on the server licensing. That's 3 Windows servers and 2 VMware hosts, our 2 firewalls, the switches, 3 switches, the ProDesk license, desktop licenses, endpoint protection, antivirus check, and daily check on backup, Veeam, and a setup fee. They were then required, which shows in the next box below, to give us bulk rates on hourly for things that aren't covered in that scope above, but that come up, the opportunity to have them on site or remote. And they had to fill those in as their flat hourly rate, the bulk rate if we purchased $3,000, the bulk if we purchased $6,000, and the bulk if it was $12,000 and up. So each of those documents you have, you'll see on the very top of each, one is Winslow Technology Group, one is White Mountain, and one is Guardian. And when you go back to the tally sheet on the front cover, you'll see that the annual IT support came in with Winslow being the lowest for the annual IT at $15,300. Next was Guardian at $16,968. And last was White Mountain at $51,984. When you then look at the next piece, and this is assuming 10 hours per month or 120 hours per year of either on-site or remote. That's for things, again, that we can't handle with our 19 or some number of hours of local on-site
What
staff.
happened in the library last week?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. If you take that number of hours and you plug it into their over $12,000 hourly rate in their submittal, it comes out to $15,720 for Guardian, $21,000 for Winslow, and $12,000 for White Mountain, for a total projected annual cost of, for Guardian, $32,688, for Winslow, $36,300, and for White Mountain, $63,984. Given that we are held to go to the lowest responsive bidder, that comes in as Guardian for the bid amount of $32,688. And back to my report, if it would please the board, I recommend the board vote to approve the bid of Guardian Information Technologies to perform the IT services described in the scope of work and to authorize the town administrator to execute the contract. I will tell you that their references are a number of other Massachusetts municipalities, several of whom are in our area and that I've spoken with. They themselves are located out of Leominster, so they have the ability to be here if we need them relatively quickly, as opposed to somebody that might be an hour away. So with that, my request stands.
Okay, can I get a motion then?
I make a motion that we, sorry, I lost my place.
Second to the bottom.
There we go.
Yep.
I make a motion that we approve and sign the bid of Guardian Information Technologies to perform the IT services described in the scope of work and to authorize the town administrator to execute the contract.
I'll second. Question on that is, how long is the contract? Is it yearly?
Year to year. Yep.
Year to year? So if,
It'll be our standard form.
so this carries us through this 2020 fiscal year? Or do we have to do it again?
Well, they provided a 3-year quote, but it's available for us to consider on a year-to-year basis. So we can take this next 3 months or 4 months of this fiscal year and then extend a year. But it'll be on our standard form contract from Mead, Tallerman, and Costa, which gives us a 30-day out with
I'd
no
rather
cost.
do it that way, just to, in case, you know,
Absolutely.
to try out.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. I'm not familiar with Guardian. I am with the other two, but
So. All those in favor?
aye.
Aye.
Excellent. Next is C, Water IT Contract. The Board of Water Commissioners have voted to seek your approval to award a contract for IT services to White Mountain IT Services per their submittal, a copy of which is enclosed. Under Board Action Requested, if it pleases the Board, a vote to approve and execute the contract. If you go to the packet, just beyond the documents that we were just looking at, you'll see the managed IT pricing summary that was submitted to the Board of Water Commissioners from White Mountain. The I don't have a tally. I didn't make a tally because this is something that is coming in again from an elected board as a recommendation. They procured it properly in terms of the advertising and procurement obligations.
My only question on this is, since they're two different companies, how do they dovetail together?
Well, you might be asking a rhetorical question, and I was about to try to answer it, and I realized it might be a rhetorical question because this is what you do. So I guess I would look to you on that, both of you. Right now, the water department is connected as a department to the town hall and the town's infrastructure. If the water department has an issue with their server, their firewall, the SCADA system, or any of their desktops, instead of having Guardian, they would have White Mountain.
So they'd be subject to any cost for?
Anything above and beyond would be, again, there's a per hour price that is beyond the scope of the overall IT oversight that's in this proposal as well. I mean, there is a little bit of funkiness to the fact that they still are connected to the town's infrastructure and system. They still are benefiting from, as one department, as are all other departments that are both on-site and off-site, benefiting from the investment in the infrastructure and the servers that are here. You know, they function off of our servers.
With that, I'd like to go the same route then, to advise them to, not a 3-year contract, but a
Sure.
same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Just to make sure it works, because if the three of us sitting here aren't gonna know
Absolutely.
tomorrow if
Absolutely.
something happens that doesn't communicate or there's more.
Yeah, and
so.
the concern I have when you have two different companies that have IT services, and there is an interdependency between the two, there tends to be a lot of this.
Yeah.
And I want to avoid that as much as possible. So yeah, I'm kind of skeptical, but I would go with a 1 year. I wouldn't go any further than a 1. I want to see how it works first.
Okay, so we get a motion then?
I make a motion that we approve and sign for a water contract to the IT services to White Mountain IT Services per their submittal for the water department, and I believe it's for their SCADA system, correct?
It's all of their IT. It's their server, their firewall, the SCADA system, and their desktops.
Okay.
Second. Any questions?
Just one question.
Sure, Kevin.
Was there 3 bids on that?
They met the requirement to solicit at least 3.
You just said in the prior that White Mountain was significantly higher than all the others, so by what, double? It sounded like on
3 times.
Yeah, 3 times the cost. So did you guys get any information as to whether they're 3 times more expensive than the other 2 for this? I'm just curious if we're throwing money away.
The information I got from the water department was that
I've heard of
they
it.
solicited 3 quotes, which is what the legal requirement is. You're not required to get them, you're required to just solicit them. And that this was their recommendation. Whether they received additional that were higher, I do not know. My belief is that they received the 1.
But the 3 that you did for the town were all running to get the business for the town.
Well, I reached out to a number of,
Okay.
I did an affirmative outreach to companies. I didn't just post it on a bulletin board and hope someone saw it.
Okay, just curious.
Okay. Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Excellent. And then last, we have miscellaneous updates. Document management and permitting software demonstration. It's something that's been being kicked around in town for a number of years and has never really taken root. Yesterday, in the discussion that we had with Mr. Cadigan, Ms. Kell, and myself after interviewing candidates, was that there is value in terms of being able to have software that consolidates all of our data based on either map, parcel ID, or address, or permit type, such that if you're buying a house, you can query the system, and it's going to tell you that there was a variance granted in 1972. It's going to tell you there was a lien on it back in 1985. It's going to tell you that
Instead of relying on somebody's memory.
there's an order of conditions. I mean, it'll all of that being easily able to be located. Right now, I mean, Veronica said pencil and paper. I don't think we're quite that bad, but yeah, we're not really where we should be.
But it's just a conversation.
This is a conversation. This is one of the groups that has been very effective in the mass market for municipalities. The company, I don't know what they were thinking. They're called Dude Solutions, but they do have a government platform that is a pretty robust and pretty effective platform. So I've had a couple of calls with them, and we're setting up a call for next week. Once I have it, I'll send it to boards and commissions, to the two of you, obviously, and to land use staff, and see who wants to get in on the call.
Okay, fair enough. That's it.
That's what I have. Thank you.
I have 2 Board of Selectmen announcements, updates, and reports. 521 meeting schedule, so we're scheduling for next week. And I should have asked the Finance Committee when they were here. Did you hear anything about work sessions? Or are we there yet?
We're not there yet.
Okay.
They're still meeting with departments individually.
Okay.
I expect, particularly given that it'll be next week now, the next meeting,
Okay.
I'll have this in far closer shape,
Okay.
and we can nail something down at that point.
So I'll leave it that we're meeting next week, and then we can decide next meeting what the next steps are, because it,
Okay, and that's the same thing that you did last year, right, when you had
yes.
John in here too as well?
Actually, no, that's a separate one I
That's a
wanted to talk
separate
about. Yeah, basically every Saturday we met and went budget by budget, line by line, kicked it, looked under the hood. It was members of the Finance Committee, member of the Select Board, and anybody. It was posted public meetings, so anybody that wanted to come. Additionally, once the warrant was closed and finalized, we had what was in effect a mock town meeting, very informal, casual, but
Yes.
selectmen, moderator, town administrator, departments to the extent that they wanted to be here, Finance Committee to the extent that they wanted to be here. And we went through each article on the warrant. John did just email, you probably copied on it?
Yeah.
Yeah, saying that he's hopeful that we're going to do that again.
Sure.
So once the warrant is finalized, we'll get that locked down on the date as well. It was helpful last year.
Yeah, and I think based on the discussions we've had so far and how much closer we are, because we were several $100,000
Sure.
out last year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I look forward to doing that again.
Good.
I didn't have anything else. Don, did you have? I thought you said you had something. I can't remember what it was. You had a
Yeah, what?
question about was it receipts, or was it financial?
Oh, well, I think we answered that.
Yeah, that was the ambulance receipts.
But I did have one other thing. As you are aware, I was a member of the Capital Planning Committee, and we have finished our things, and we have everything set. We would have had this in a week ago, but something popped up from Laurie. We investigated, and we were in agreement that this is probably the way to go. Laurie explained to us that in the bond proceeds receipt reserve fund,
Premium.
there's a premium that
Yep.
we can use.
Absolutely.
She checked with our auditors, and the purpose for which we wanted to use it for can be used. So what we have done is we're requesting to move from that receipt account to the capitalization stabilization account, $140,500 for the purpose of purchasing or partly purchasing the fire truck. And we'd like to have that on
Absolutely.
the special.
Absolutely.
Yeah, before, so that it would be done. But I have
Perfect.
a copy of it for you.
Perfect.
The second would be to and I've already spoken with the fire chief, is that he had put in a request for a debt exclusion. We want to change that instead of a debt exclusion. After talking to Lori, and there was a discussion with the treasurer, we're going to go for a capital exclusion, which is a
One year,
one-year
absolutely.
exclusion for the remainder, which is $75,104. And that would be a separate article.
Yep,
on that.
and I can work up the capital or debt exclusion spreadsheet that I have, that I've been carrying around for years, Don, that'll show what the impact would be on a one-year hit for that $70,000+.
Perfect, then, I was gonna ask that question. We don't have to discuss this tonight because it wasn't on the agenda, but here is a list of the approved projects by the capital committee, and if we can put that on for next week and we have a short discussion on it.
Amen? Yep.
That's it for me.
Okay, clerk of the board announcements. I don't think we have any.
No, I have no announcements.
Okay. Review and sign payroll bill warrants.
I make a motion that we review and sign payroll warrants, payroll and bill payable warrants out of session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Executive sessions, we got 3, so I'll have you read them all at once.
You want me to read them all at once?
If you don't mind.
Okay. I vote that we go into it, excuse me, executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A2, to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining session or contract negotiation with non-union personnel. Reference fire chief.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I make a motion that we go into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A3, to discuss strategy with respects to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position or litigating position of the chair, and the chair so declares, AFSCME Police Union grievance.
I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, roll call, I'm sorry. We should have roll called the last one, too.
Don Klein, aye.
Wayne Miller, aye.
I make a motion, we go into executive session pursuant to General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21A1, to discuss the reputation, character, physical condition, or mental health, rather than professional competence of an individual, or to discuss the discipline or dismissal of, or complaints or charges brought against a public official, employee, staff member, or individual.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Wayne Miller, yes. Roll call.
Don Klein, aye.
And we won't be coming back.
Make a motion that we conclude the general session and go into executive session, and we will not be returning to open session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oh, yes. Thanks, everybody. Good job, kid.